Hey, welcome back. Thank you. You know, I don't know if you've figured this out yet, but I don't like to start until I'm pretty convinced, reasonably convinced that I'm not standing up here by myself. Well, I am standing up here by myself, but, you know, not alone in the room. Okay, so we have a big afternoon ahead of us, and I'd like to kick it off with one of our treasured certified facilitators of the Extreme Leadership Workshop. She is an agile business expert. She is a funny, warm, extremely intelligent, amazing, great leader in her own right. And her name is Christen McLemore. Where are you, Christen? Where are you? Where are you? There she is. Come on up. Now, as she's walking up here, you know what's happening? You can keep the music going. What's happening now for the agenda-minded among you, you are looking through your program. You're looking through your workbook and saying, Christen, I don't remember seeing that name in there. That's because it's not in there. Remember I told you you're going to hear from some speakers that you don't know about yet? Here she is, once again, Christen McLemore.
Well, I have to say that I'm extremely grateful to Steve for giving me these few minutes with all of you. And my only hope is that I don't rip my pants, I don't trip and fall, because those have happened to me while I've been teaching and doing some sessions. So to say that I'm nervous is an understatement because my kneecaps are literally moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour right now. And I don't even know if it's because I'm freaking cold or something else. So I would like you to take a minute and just think about comedians, your favorite comedians. Think of, yeah, can you think of, just name some names of your favorite, yeah? Ooh, man, I'm glad we have a lot of them. All right, awesome. Now, and it keeps going. So if you were to tell some of those jokes right now, could you tell those jokes at work? Could you tell them at church? So some of you, maybe not. And what I'd like for you to also consider is that irreverence is not always bad. But when I say that word, a lot of folks immediately think of irreverence as being something, whew, man, you can't do that. That's sacred. That's holy, right? So what I'd like you to consider is there are some examples where irreverence is actually just not only satisfying, but it can also be a way to break down some of the anxiety and the ridiculousness that we face all the time. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples. Maybe not. I am hitting the wrong button, that is why. Now, to me, my first thought was, wow, I didn't know they made Garanimals for adults, right? Now, I had an audio, but I'm going to tell you about this, and this is so apropos that everything happens for a reason, and I firmly believe that we just played a John Lennon song, and I had picked this video 3 days ago, just by chance. So I know I'm supposed to be here, and I know that I'm supposed to talk about this, but one of the things that John Lennon did in 1963 at the Royal Variety performance in the UK in front of the Queen was to introduce his song, Twist and Shout, and as he introduced it, he said to the audience, I need some help from all of you. All of you in the cheap seats, I want you to clap your hands, and for the rest of you, just rattle your jewelry. And the Queen, as the camera goes to her, simply does this, right? And I thought, wow, that was pretty irreverent in those days, and maybe even still to say something like that. Now, I feel like some people laugh openly about things, and some people maybe secretly laugh about things, and some don't laugh at all, and that's fine, but it also represented something that I experienced in my career over the years, and that was this division that I felt for many years between who I was before 5 o'clock and who I could be after 5 o'clock. And it frustrated me. So I went to look for the word irreverence a little bit more, and I found a reverend in Connecticut who goes on to say, I treasure irreverent humor, which I consider a fine art. Mean humor is just ugly. Disrespectful humor is also ugly and often ignorant. But irreverence for me is delicious because it originates from love and a genuine appreciation for the absurdity. And I was like, she's my lady. Reverend, preach it. I want to know that I can be irreverent and still be respected as a leader. But I rejected the idea that I had to be polished. But I thought, okay, well, if I can't be a people manager because I'm not polished, then what am I going to do? So I continued to take on roles without titles so that I could be myself and not have any recourse. But along the way, I worked for AOL for about 15 years, America Online, and I was laid off 3 times and hired back almost all of them, except for the last one, right? And I remember thinking, gosh, you know, I'm just a number, it doesn't matter. What about all the other people that got laid off? Screw them. I don't need this job anyway. And then I took it because they paid me more when I came back. So I continued to look for things that were a little in your face. I joined a volunteer firefighter EMT company in Loudoun County, Virginia, and I was an EMT firefighter volunteer for about 10 years. And if you can only put yourself in a state of being in front of the firehouse or inside of it and know how they talk, it's not clean. But that's how I was finding my tribe. And I also found my tribe at work, and I found this balance, and I thought, okay, well, this is actually working out really well because I'm able to be myself. I'm able to be at work and also find people that appreciated the same kind of humor, the SNL, the Monty Python, the Super Troopers. Thank you. Thank you. That's right. But all of those movies, we were quoting them on a daily basis. Office Space was like our movie. That was what brought us, like we literally had the VHS tape in the conference room where we would go and bring our laptops and work all day while we watched that movie. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I could do this. So I decided that, you know, I keep telling people that I'm not really a nice person. I don't like people. And for a while there, I believed it. But then I realized, no, that's probably not what it is. It's just that I have this irreverent side of my personality that comes out when I'm relaxed and I'm having fun, but I'm afraid that I can't be that way with everyone all the time. I get in front of the CEOs or the CFOs or the CTOs or the see what you want to CEOs, and I feel like, oh, I just became Christen McLemore, Southern Baptist church girl that just has to sing in the choir and not say anything, you know, offensive. But then I realized, those are the same guys that I see at happy hour across the street from the office, and they're dropping the witch bombs, you know, and they don't get fired, well, for different reasons, I'm sure. And I thought, okay, I've got to be able to mix this up. So years later, I find myself working at a company in Denver, Colorado, where I moved, and we were going through a lot of transition. We had threats of layoffs. We had tons of people wondering if they were going to have a job. And the management was just so set on fixing business problems and fighting fires that nobody was paying attention to how people were feeling. And there was a huge sense of anxiety. So I said to my boss after he'd asked me for the 3rd time to be a manager, to which the first 2 times I'd said, absolutely not. I will not do that again in my career because I was such a horrible manager the first time around. Because I believed that that was what was going on. And trust me, some people told me, so I know it was bad. I thought, all right, well, if I do it, I will only do it if I get to spend at least half of my time really getting to know the team, finding out what they need, and giving it to them. Because if you tell me I have to run the business and 95+% of my time is going to be in spreadsheet hell, I don't want the job. And he said, I would love it if you do that because I wish I had the time. I said, all right, so I'm going to do it. Well, I had to embrace this irreverent side of me, and a lot of my coworkers and my team were spread across the whole globe And we often were not given a whole lot of time to spend with each other. So I had invited some folks to a coaches conference, and we were invited to do a coaches conference in Boulder, Colorado. And a friend of mine gave me the book Radical Leap. And as perfectly timed as that gift was, I was also offered the opportunity to actually speak to Steve on the phone. And in that call, it did not take much to convince me to go to his Extreme Leadership Facilitation class here in San Diego. And while I was sitting in that class months later, we were introducing ourselves around the table, and I was super nervous, but I tend to ramble when I'm nervous, and I found myself just blurting out something that I'd never admitted to anyone before. I said, oh, I have been telling people for years that I don't like them. I don't even like children. And if you were here at the leadership event last year, you'll know I like dogs more than just about anybody else, but that's a whole nother story. So I said, I know though that's not really true. I know now that I've been pushing people away because I'm afraid to let them in. And I need this as much as my team does. Because we are so afraid that we're going to lose our jobs that we're not paying attention to us anymore. And we need to take that time. We need to start paying attention to folks. And I said, now is the time, and we're going to change this. So I immediately, after going to the class, I got in touch with Beth Lefevre, who's my loving, supportive professional coach. Started working with her for about a year. I brought her in. She did a passion test, if you've heard of it. Earlier yesterday, we mentioned it. And I said, I would love for all of you to find out what your passions are, and I would love to know what they are if you're comfortable sharing it with me, because I want to support you no matter where we all end up. And through an honest-to-God clerical error, I was laid off in November. And as my boss called me to profusely apologize for the mistake and said, I will do my best to hire you back, I said, well, you know, I'm not sure if you know who I'm talking about, but there's this artist, his name is Bob Ross, and he was a TV painter back in the 70s. And he used to say all the time that, there are no mistakes. There are just happy little accidents. And I'm out. I am ready to go because I got shit to do, and it's not here anymore. So I got super nervous, and I said, all right, well, what am I going to do now? And that is when I started to really show people, I'm going to do what it takes. I'm actually going to go out there and make something happen. And I thought, you know what? People need to know that who I am is who I bring to the table, and that's me. And I'm not afraid to make the jokes that I make because I'm not the disrespectful humor. I'm not the mean humor. I'm the irreverence of the absurdity. I am the kind of person that loves when George Carlin or Bill Maher or all of those folks start to test the boundaries of the absurd and make you fall on the floor laughing about it, even if it is something that you hold dear. And I have tons of stories that I've now decided I'm going to write about. And I published a few of them on LinkedIn just to kind of test the audience to see how much they would respond to it. And one of the articles, this was not planned, by the way, and I did get all my words censored by Mr. Farber a couple of days ago to let me know what I couldn't say, so I had to strip out some George Carlin stuff real quick. But I remember telling a story, and this is the short version of it and the punchline, where I'd gotten really sick, but I still had to teach a class, and I was standing in front of the audience saying, we're going to have to decon that room outside in the hallway because nobody should go in there after I go in there with all the junk I've got in my head right now. And as I was realizing that there was someone in that room, I thought, oh my gosh, I know I cleaned up after myself, so there's nothing in there I'm embarrassed about, but I could hear everything coming out of the door, and I didn't realize that people could hear, and it was right near a really busy hallway. I farted in there, like an hour before that. All I could think of was, oh, I'm going to tell people about this story. And now it's out there. So I will leave you with this. I think it's really important for people to accept who they are, to be proud of who they are, to share who they are because there's somebody else that's just like you out there. And that was what I was afraid of. I wanted to be perfect because I was brought up to do the right thing, to do all the great things that we're supposed to do. And I thought, you know what? I'm afraid that I'm not quite right, maybe in the head sometimes. But I'm not acceptable to certain people. Maybe C-level and E-level people won't appreciate the kind of things that I have to say. But I want to leave you with something that, as much as I tried to memorize, I'm also dyslexic. And so even with my own handwriting, this is going to be entertaining. So just bear with me. I have decided to go through many OSMs in my life. And today is probably one of the bigger ones because I have now officially launched my own consulting business this morning. And I'm like, yeah, super crazy. Thank you. Because I want people to imagine what your office would be like if leaders created strategies to lead and motivate people. Make it part of their North Stars, their mother strategies. To be comfortable being myself and sharing my secret sauce with everyone else, and for you to feel comfortable to share your secret sauce with everyone else. Can you only imagine that workplace is now a second home, and your coworkers are now a second family? So even while I might be my own special sauce of irreverence, I will always be very loving too. Thank you.
Fantastic. Christen, you were speaking directly to me, and I think that's. I don't know that it'd be a surprise to folks that know me that irreverence is kind of my jam. So, but isn't it interesting that we talk a lot about authenticity, and we all say we want it, and we all say we want it in each other, and we all want to see it from other people. Well, what if I am authentically irreverent? Is there a place for that? And in my experience, there is. And I will tell you that you're what is loving irreverent leadership? I think was the tagline or the name of her new company. That's a magic combination. Again, speaking for myself, that is kind of where I come from. My brain is irreverent. And I'm all about love. It's both. And, from my early days in my career with my mentors, I've mentioned Jim Kouzes many times, co-author of the Leadership Challenge. He was the president of the Tom Peters Company when I joined there. He was the guy that hired me. And Jim is brilliant. And his work has had a profound impact on my own work. And Jim can be a little bit prickly sometimes. He had a little bit of thin skin, which to me was just big, glorious invitation. Just to see if I could poke that ego a little bit. And I saw him get really prickly with other people when they tried to tease with him and joke with him. He never got that way with me because he was always very, very clear, because it was very, very true, that I loved him deeply. And at the same time, that kind of gave me license to dig a little bit. So I'm really excited to see what is next for Christen.